We are in Acts 7, verses 3 through 5. He said to them, "Go out from your land and from your kindred, and go into a land that I will show you." God said to Abraham that he was, when he was in Mesopotamia, which is Iraq, um, that he was called, and he did not immediately go. He dwelt in Haran, which is just north of the Promised Land, and he did not immediately leave his relatives. His father came with him. So Abraham's partial obedience did not take away God's promise. Instead, it meant the promise was on hold until Abraham was ready to do what the Lord said. The fulfillment of this promise didn't progress until Abraham left Haran and his father behind and went to the place that God wanted him to go. Sometimes our delays aren't going to fall under condemnation. We need to grow. We need to maybe go and get some education in the Word of God. We need to grow in our faith. You don't just release people randomly out into the world to start witnessing. You provide, it says go and make disciples. It doesn't say go and make blitzkrieg soldiers. And even being the father of the believing, Galatians 3:7, he didn't get started right away. Abraham is an example of one who grew in his faith and obedience and then went. And so this is vitally important. Growth is important. In a marriage, you are asked to leave in order to cleave. He receives a call by God and then moves to Haran. So this is a relationship thing that he has with God. Then he went out from the land of the Chaldeans and lived in Haran, and it's just north of the Promised Land. And after his father died, God removed him from there into the land in which you are now living. Okay, so it's about 5 years. I mean, we're not talking centuries. We're talking about 5 years. Then he followed God's call to the letter. Yet he gave him no inheritance in it, not even a foot length, but promised to give it to him as a possession and to his offspring after him, though he had no child. Abraham was promised the land and descendants, but he had no outward proof yet. He could only trust God for the fulfillment of these things. I find it interesting. God's delays is not a way of God saying no. So he's going to live. Abraham, their father spiritually, is going to live as a stranger. So we're going to see that later when he talks about the Exodus. With this, Stephen emphasized the relationship with God as the basis of faith, not outward evidences like a temple or a structure or an institution and customs. Even when Abraham was in the land, he was still a pilgrim. He didn't own, he bought a small plot, cemetery plot. That's it. He didn't make an idol out of the blessings of God and that God had given and promised. This was not a rebuke to the religious leaders. Stephen spoke because among many of them, they had stopped being pilgrims. They had bought into the world. They made the idols out of the blessings of God and the temple.